Yeah, meow. Great Depression incoming. Wouldn't put it past us. I mean, we've done all sorts of things over the last 25 years to deregulate, and the whole point of all those regulations was to stave off an economic ruin. I mean, I personally think the two worst things Bill Clinton did his entire time in office. Number one was the 1996 Telecommunications Act, which allowed basically unfettered control of the media by anyone who wants it. Before, you were only allowed to own up to 8 television stations, and you couldn't have more than 2 in the same market. Newspapers could basically own one newspaper per city, and that was it. Billboards were controlled, and what happened was Clear Channel, Sinclair, Fisher Broadcasting, these broadcasting companies went out and bought everything. They bought competing stations. They shut them down. They did things. They politically motivated stuff. They crossed markets, and they owned TV stations and newspapers when they were allowed to own that before. They owned 100 radio stations in a single market. So you get things like Clear Channel and what's the iHeartRadio and all these like big massive companies forming. Clinton ruined media in the United States, and it was to his detriment. I mean, let's face it, they weren't too kind to him. And he rolled over and signed that 1996 Telecommunications Act and completely just effed us over. The other thing was when he signed the repeal of Glass-Steagall. Now, Glass-Steagall was a law that basically made it so that commercial banks couldn't act like investment banks, and they couldn't own each other. And now we've got commercial banks owning investment banks. You know, Bank of America owns Merrill Lynch. JP Morgan owns, Chase owns JP Morgan. Nomura owns what was Lehman Brothers, right? So we have these commercial banks now owning and acting like investment banks. And the reason why Glass-Steagall was created was because the problem with the 1929 crash largely stemmed from the fact that people would give their money to a bank for savings, checking, whatever, and the bank would take that money and go gamble it in the market. Yeah, I'll buy a bunch of stocks. We're cool. And then the market collapsed and no one had their money anymore. So Glass-Steagall was passed to be like, no. If you are a savings bank, you are a savings bank. What you can do is you can give out money as loans. You can do credit cards. You can do car loans. You can do home loans. But you can't take that money and put it into the stock market. And in 1999, Bill Clinton signed the repeal of Glass-Steagall, and we got the 2008 financial crisis, a large part of it. And we still haven't repealed it. We still have these giant banks consolidating and getting even bigger. Now Umpqua and Columbia Bank are combining. These were small regional banks up until the 2008 financial crisis, and then they gobbled up all the other small regional banks. And now they're becoming behemoths, and they've become a sizable bank as a result of it. Umpqua Bank has been busted 3 times in the last year for fronting Ponzi schemes and not doing due diligence. Lost people billions of dollars in these Ponzi schemes. And now they're being allowed to merge with another bank and be an even bigger problem. So, you know, and it didn't help that ensuing administrations didn't do their due diligence and stop the amalgamation from there. I mean, Bill Clinton wanted to see more home ownership. I get it. Everyone wants to see more home ownership. So he allowed adjustable rate mortgages to be up to 5% of the market. So the other 95% had to be fixed rate mortgages. 5% could be adjustable rate for people that had, you know, maybe not the best credit to get them in to buy a home. And in 2004, George Bush raised that to 20%. And then 2006, he said unlimited. And 2006 became, hey, why take that fixed rate mortgage for a home when you can have this fancy adjustable rate mortgage with a huge introductory offer and interest rates only like a 1% right now? We can get you into this home you can't afford because it's $1 million home and you don't qualify for it because we're not going to look at all at what you earn. And then 2 years later, all those mortgages reset and everyone lost their houses. So there's a reason why these regulations are put into place. And the reason to remove those regulations is to make a quick buck and then ruin everything all over again. When someone says to you like, oh, I gotta deregulate, just go, fuck you. No. What we need strict regulations, and we need to adhere to those and make sure they don't change. Because oftentimes the thing is like, well, we haven't had a depression in 70 years, so let's just remove all the laws because we don't need them anymore, right? Why have Glass-Steagall when we haven't had a depression? And then 7 years later, you've got the largest economic collapse since the Great Depression. I wonder why possibly we could have had Glass-Steagall in place and not have a depression for 70 years. And then you remove it in 7 years, we get essentially a depression. Yeah, man. So that whole blue dog Democrat, let's deregulate things like Republican stuff, just didn't work out for the economy. Don't do that. Just regulate and enforce those regulations.